Oh man, we have some really juicy rumors and leaks coming our way, courtesy of Reddit, about the PlayStation 5. When is it going to be released? What are the specs? What games could potentially launch with the system? And you know what? I got a ton of requests to go over this information, so let's do it, shall we? What is going on, guys? Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another video. And if by the end of this video you enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. So, this comes to us from Reddit, from a user there called Ruthnik Cookie. And a lot of people are taking this as gospel fact. And I'll tell you why. You see, this guy, the day before Sony announced they weren't going to be at E3, he made a thread and said, hey, Sony's not going to be at E3. And everyone's like, you're lying, dude. You don't know that. Ban this fool. And 24 hours later, he's heralded as, oh my god, this guy is an insider. He knew it. So that's why a lot of people are running with the idea that this is true, because this guy said something that nobody said before, kind of got banned for it, and obviously people are now taking what he says with a lot of truth behind it. So what exactly is he saying? Well, he's saying that the PlayStation 5 will be out sometime in 2020, which isn't really a surprise considering Sony left E3 this year, right? Doesn't make any sense if you're launching a console in 2019 that you're going to be skipping E3. Now he says that there is going to be some sort of event later on, midway through next year, where they'll show the PlayStation 5, but the big reveal will be at PSX 2019, because he says the launch of the PlayStation 5 is either March or November of 2020, and it hasn't been decided yet. Now, if it's March 2020, I definitely can see a full reveal of the system at PSX 2019. In fact, that's probably the best place to do it. You invite all your fans down there, you show off the look of the console, the specs of it, you show off the brand new first party games that you're working on, like Horizon Zero Dawn 2 and things of that nature, and people will absolutely go wild. And then you release it in March. Clearly, the Nintendo Switch has shown companies that you don't need to launch your big hardware at the end of the year. In fact, you can get all your hardcore to buy it in March, just like, the Nintendo fans did, get really good sales throughout the rest of the year, and then have a second kind of wind by having that holiday, which kind of makes sense. When I think of the good time to launch a console, March seems like probably the best if you're looking to really drive an install base, because we all know the hardcore, the super hardcore, are going to buy it day one, whether it comes out in November 2020 or March 2020, right? They're going to buy as many as they possibly can. So you get that initial surge of sales in March, right? And then as the months go on, more and more people, they save up more money, they buy it. And then you have the holidays, where people are more prone to spend a lot of money. And then you get that second surge of sales, and there you're off to a great, fantastic start for the PlayStation 5. Of course, that would assume if they want to release it in March, that it's finished by March. Otherwise, you go to the long traditional release date of November, which probably would also be competing with launch of the Xbox 2 at that time. Personally, if it's ready by March, I'd release in March, but we'll find out exactly next year, because if they don't do a full reveal of the system at PSX 2019 and they go into 2020 without any sort of talk about it, and they have a PlayStation 5 conference in February, well then clearly March is too early. It'll be just like the playbook for the PlayStation 4. They'll have that New York event where they'll show it off, and maybe they'll go back to E3 2020, show off all the games, and then it'll come out in November. So that's what he's saying about the release date. Really no surprises there, right? I mean, it's pretty much March or November of 2020. Now, as for the specs, he described the PlayStation 5 as a monster, kind of taken from the playbook of the Xbox One X when that was called a monster. And he says it's a 4K 60 stable and at the same time kind of monster. Features a Ryzen 8-core CPU, which apparently aligns with previous rumors, and the console would also use some sort of custom GPU based on AMD's upcoming Navi architecture. Now, you guys know I'm not a tech guy. Honestly, really don't even know what all that means. But 4K 60 stable and a monster? Is that realistic to expect a console, at least right now, to run every game at 4K 60? Despite how powerful the PlayStation 5 is going to be, and I can see it being a very powerful machine, considering their last one, the Pro, wasn't a true 4K machine, and clearly we saw how much more powerful the Xbox One X was just a year later. So I expect the PS5 to be a beast of a machine, right? I really, really do. But I don't expect all games to run at 4K 60. I mean, just look at the PlayStation 4, for example. I mean, there was executives saying there's two words that'll come together like peanut butter and jelly with the PlayStation 4, and that's 1080p 60. And people were saying, give me 1080p 60 or give me death. But we didn't really even get a lot of games that were 1080p and 60 frames, you know? And with the Pro and even the Xbox One X, we've gotten at least the graphical options and performance options. I still expect that to be the same. I don't expect every game to be 4K 60 because some developers are going to want to, you know, turn up those graphical settings and all those different things they can do to make their game look amazing and not worry about frame rate. As maybe the general populace, there's studies out there that show the general populace really doesn't care about 30 or 60 frames, and they know this. So, as much as I would love to believe that next generation is going to provide 4K 60 on every single game, I don't believe it. I really don't believe it because we know how developers are. I fully expect there to be settings on each one of these consoles to allow you to play at 4K 30 or perhaps 1440p 60, but I don't expect every single game to run at 4K 60, but I do think the PlayStation 5 is going to be a monster piece of hardware. The question is, will it be more powerful than the Xbox? Will we get in a discussion again of which system is more powerful? We've gotten away from that in the recent years. It's been more about the games, God of War and Spider-Man's and the Horizon Zero Dawns and things of that nature, and less about power of a system, less about the resolution and the specs. So I wonder if both systems will launch at the same time, and if they are about the same, you know, graphically powerful, what will the conversation be? Will the conversation then go back to games? If one's more powerful than the other, will it be about resolution and performance? I guess only time will tell. Now, this leak also mentions PlayStation VR, and it's getting a successor. The current version's breaker box is being moved inside the console, and the PSVR 2 will have a built-in camera. There are new PlayStation Move controllers in development, and Sony's also said to be testing virtual reality gloves. Look, I played PSVR a few times. It's such an amazing experience, but not one I want all the time, and not one I want in every single game. For PSVR to really take off, they really need to cut out all the wires. It has a lot of clutter. They need to make the headset really slim. They need to make it wireless, in my opinion. And it's nice to see Sony actually continuing to go with PSVR, because a common thought would be like, look, we got Facebook apparently getting out of the VR business. Oculus isn't doing well. Who knows what the Vive's doing? Doesn't really seem like VR is that strong. And Sony's doubling down on it. They're making a new one for the PlayStation 5, built-in cameras and all this stuff. So you gotta at least give kudos to Sony for going along that path, right? Now, I just don't want that to be mandatory. There better be a PlayStation 5 SKU where I can buy where I just want the system, or a SKU that comes with PSVR. I don't want them to do a Connect situation where, hey, you buy PlayStation 5, you have PSVR, and then they can go to the developers and be like, hey, everybody has a PSVR. Because that would be a gigantic mistake in my opinion. Although none of these rumors really mention that, I'm just saying it for myself. Now, game-wise, this leaker says that the 3 big PS4 upcoming exclusives, Death Stranding, Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima, will all be PS5 launch games. Doesn't know if backwards compatibility will be present, but that does seem like a safe bet. Now, I heard this a long time ago, so this lines up a little bit what I've heard, that some of those games are definitely going to be PS5 launch titles, especially if the system is launching in March. You can kind of have it as a cross-gen. Last of Us comes out, say, June of 2020, you launch it as a PS5 game, and you launch it as a PS4 game, and everybody's happy. In fact, if you launch it in March, you can basically turn all the third-party games from 2019 that launch in between like September and November, and then release those for the PlayStation 5 in March and kind of double dip. And there was those reports that Call of Duty Infinity Ward was working on a next-gen game. Could it be that their Call of Duty game, which is up in 2019, would release for the Xbox One and PS4, and then a few months later be ported to the PlayStation 5? And I do wonder how a lot of PlayStation fans would take the announcement of those last 3 exclusives also being PS5 launch titles. Would people feel like they were lied to? That those games, even though they did come out to PlayStation 4, it does seem like they were more PlayStation 5 titles. It's interesting to see how people react to that, although I fully expect that to be the case. I don't know if it'll be all 3, but I think some combination of those will definitely be cross-gen launch titles for the PlayStation 5. Now, the big thing here is that he says that a lot of developers have PS5 dev kits, which if it's coming out in 2020, I would imagine a lot of developers have them or at least know of the specifications. And he says that the machine will cost $500 at launch. Now, this is something that is definitely very interesting. $500. Not as much as the price that kind of almost destroyed the PlayStation 3 at $600, but $100 more than the sweet spot that basically allowed the PlayStation 4 to dominate this generation. I have a hard time believing that the PlayStation 5 is going to be $500. It's like, Sony, did you not understand some of the reasons why you won this gen? Why you completely decimated the Xbox One, who launched at $500? $500 is quite expensive, and yeah, sure, the hardcore, the super PlayStation fans, they'll all buy it day one. No questions asked. But it's about the general populace, the more casual you get. That's when that sticker shock will come into play. Now, is it $500 because that's what it needs to be this 4K 60 stable beast? Maybe. Do they have still plans on using the PlayStation 4 Pro hardware in some manner as like a base unit, and this is just more an expensive SKU? I don't know. But I do think $500, you're treading on thin ice at that price. Yeah, from all accounts, the Xbox One X did very well at $500, but a lot of Xbox gamers wanted an upgrade from the Xbox One, which wasn't a very powerful system. People were looking to upgrade. There hasn't really been a big outcry of people looking to upgrade for the PlayStation 4 just because they have a ton of exclusives to play. So, just be very careful about that price point. I think you should be $400 because history tells you that is the price you want to be when you're trying to sell your system, when you're trying to dominate. Coming in at $500 gives a little leeway for Microsoft to maybe do something. Does Microsoft come in with a cheaper system and start taking some potential customers away from you. That's the one thing I'm kind of like iffy on here. $500 is a little too much. But he also goes on to say that he called BioWare Anthems a complete mess in its current state and said it'll be delayed again. Now, I know a couple people who are kind of in the know about some of these things in the industry, and I reached out to them and asked, hey, any truth to this? Anthem is a mess? And they replied back with absolutely not, and it's not getting delayed. So either this guy knows things a lot of other people don't know, and all this turns out to be true, especially if Anthem gets delayed. But if it doesn't get delayed, like my buddies tell me it won't, does that fact that he was wrong about Anthem make you question everything else in this leak? He was right about Sony not being at E3 a day before anybody was talking about it. So there, you already have to look at it with like, this guy's right before, maybe he knows what he's talking about. So yeah, I am looking at this with, I think he knows a lot of things here. But then also, if he's wrong about Anthem, it's like, well, is he really wrong about some of the other things? Maybe he has some really good sources at Sony, which is why he got that information, and has all this rumors. But then maybe he doesn't really have some good sources at EA. So just keep all this stuff with the grain of salt, because who knows if it's really true. I think a lot of it will be true. I definitely think the March or November 2020 release date is probably a absolute certainty. I think Ghost of Tsushima, Death Stranding, Last of Us Part 2 will be PS5 launch titles. I don't know about every game running at 4K 60. I'm kind of a little doubtful of that. I'm really doubtful of the price point. I think 400 is the way to go, and I don't think that Anthem is going to get delayed. So those are the hot collection of rumors and leaks for PlayStation 5. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a thumbs up. Share this out with more people. I'd greatly appreciate it. Hit that sub button if you're new. Hit that notification bell if you always want to be notified when I drop new content. Thank you guys for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Later, guys.